Put your money where your community is. Get in the action. Action 1. Independent thinkers working together. Inspiring action in media. Get in the action. Inspire today. Join us by being a sponsor at weareA1.com.
Whoa, what a cool image in the background here, huh? Okay, everybody, this is Shen. Everybody, just said that. This is Shen Gum. This is SG2 on Space episode number 25. Yes, we've been rocking and rolling for a while here. Flying high. In any case, featured on Action One Media's lovely backgrounds you can see here as always. And of course, follow Action One Media at facebook.com/Action1Media, one being spelled O-N-E. And also check out Action One Media's website at weareA1.com, where 1 is the number 1. And of course, follow me at facebook.com/TheShenShow, TheShenShow. And change of events, also YouTube channels, right? So on YouTube, you can also check it out. If you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/CAST725, or you can check out Action One Media's YouTube channel, and there should be a playlist there. I was going to add one more thing. Recently, I have revamped my news media article website called impacthound.com. So I'm just going to tell you guys about that. impacthound.com. And so that you can think of that as the pretty much, if this is a speaking format, that is a written format, where instead of me blabbing, you can read my words blabbing, which may be less annoying if you find my voice annoying, which I don't. But anyways, that aside, you can check that out. I post a link up there. And so that's that. So a lot of thought I was going to interview a guest today, but that's going to have to wait until next time in order to give him some more time to prepare, apparently, which is fine, because as always, I am prepared to offer the latest dose of both the relevant and the irrelevant, the mundane and the really weird stuff. So let's start with something that is actually, let's save the weird stuff for the last part, because that's what always happens. So if you only want to hear the weird stuff, listen to me past 8:50 p.m., say, around Houston, or, you know, whatever. Basically in the last couple minutes. All right. So special announcement. I don't know about your guys' feelings about climate change, but I imagine if you're listening to this show, you realize that it is an issue, I would hope. So recent reports have shown out that Arctic ice has continued to decline, all right? So now, if you're going to read certain factual statements, you may be like, that's not too bad, because this isn't the worst one yet, right? The worst one, like this is actually the 7th worst one. And let me explain what I mean by the Arctic sea ice. See, sea ice in the Arctic is not constant, all right? It grows throughout the fall and winter and then shrinks. It makes sense, right? You get hotter, you more ice melts. So it kind of fluctuates, right? So 2019 wintertime extent reached on March 13th ties with 2007 as the seventh smallest extent of winter sea ice in the satellite record, according to NASA scientists. This year's, to give you exact numbers, this year's maximum extent peaked at 5.71 million square miles. It is 332,000 square miles below the 1981 to 2010 average maximum. So basically, it's equivalent to missing an area of ice larger than the state of Texas. All right. So, typically the Arctic ice maximum hits sometime between late February and early April, and then thins and shrinks during the spring and summer until it reaches this annual minimum extent in September. All right. So, while you may think, okay, well, it's the seventh worst, that's not too bad. No, it doesn't mean that the Arctic sea ice is recovering. And let me quote something from Melinda Webster, a sea ice scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. She says this: while this year wasn't record low, the maximum extent still points to there being a sustained decline in winter sea ice. The temperatures in the Arctic were a bit higher than average, and we saw a lot of ice loss in the Bering Sea. But nothing this winter was as extreme or dramatic compared to recent years and the record lows. So, bad, okay? Also, rising temperatures in the Arctic over the past decades have also thinned the sea ice pack. So basically, that's the multi-layer ice, the older and thicker ice that acted like a bastion against melting for the rest of the sea ice cover has mostly disappeared. So essentially, now 70% of the ice pack is seasonal ice, basically ice that rapidly grows in the winter only to completely disappear next summer. So there's been a loss of permanent ice, which is bad, okay? So, because this younger ice is thinner and grows faster in the winter, it is more responsive to the weather, and so makes the sea ice respond differently than before. So there's going to be greater variability, and overall, the amount of sea ice, the constant sea ice, is declining, all right? Even if, this year, say, wasn't the worst. Pretty important, I would say. A lot of countries are going to go underwater, for sure. I am not looking forward to that. I said looking forward to that as if it's a good thing. It's not. So, we do have a little short video that shows how the sea ice is, I believe, expanding and so on and so forth. And okay, I think we just played it, actually. No? Maybe something's happening. All right. Okay, we're playing a little bit. All right. So let's move on. Okay. Actually, you know what? I suggest that I give you a brief overview, and then we're gonna take a short break, okay, of what's coming up next. So next up, talking about Earth gravity variations. Yes, gravity is not constant all around the Earth. The Japanese Hayabusa 2 first data retrieved from the Ryugu asteroid. Carbon monoxide detectors could possibly warn of extraterrestrial life. All right, and those are the signs. And then after that, talking about space cowboys, let's just say. Bereshit, remember that Israeli lander that's going to go to the moon? Their landing site has been confirmed. There's also exciting news for a hypersonic space plane called Skylon that the British has been developing for the last few decades that may actually fly real soon. And then talking about best habitable zones to search for life, and then really weird things about UFOs, of course. Cannot forget that. So with that, let's take a short break. We will be right back. You've been listening to SG2 on Space, episode number 25.
Put your money where your community is. Get in the action at weareA1.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girl Janetta with A1 Live Pop-Up here at African Fashion Week Art, Wine, and Culture event. We are having an amazing time. They have some lovely art pieces to see. So go ahead, Get down here. You still have time. Everybody get in the action.
Put your money where your community is. Get in the action at We Are. Get in the action at weareA1.com.
Okay, as we said, we're gonna play a short video of the Arctic sea ice. This is really short, so let's hit it. Just came out 1 day ago. So you can see how the sea ice expands during the winter time. Arctic sea ice grows and shrinks during the seasons, right? And then shrinks during the summertime. Well, so NASA works with the National Snow and Ice Data Center and tracks them from the annual minimum at the end of summer to the peak extent at the end of winter. So, okay, so March 13th, it reached its maximum extent, as I was describing. It's pretty cool diagram here. Last 4 years have been the lowest observed by satellites. So there's a continuous trend in declining ice. And this is also really bad, by the way. Less ice means less reflectivity, right? From the sun's rays. And so what does that mean? Your Earth is going to heat up even more, which ain't good. Okay. So with that, let's continue. All right. Just something to note, guys. If you, if you want to do something, well, see if you can. Not sure really what you can do, but, maybe get involved with some environmental groups or read up some more articles and see what you can do. All right. So, Earth gravity variations. All right. So, 10 years ago, ESA, the European Space Agency, launched one of its most innovative satellites called GOCE. Which spent 4 years measuring gravity, all right? So we learned a bunch of stuff about our own gravity field, and essentially it mapped out extremely detailed gravitational fields, all right, of Earth, okay? So gravity around the surface is not constant because it depends on the planet's rotation, the position of mountains and ocean trenches, and different densities of materials in Earth's interior, as well as the surface. So this is really important for measuring ocean circulation, sea level change, and for understanding geological processes that occurs deep inside the planet. All right. So, so basically, what has happened is that this, for instance, just some other examples. We're using these measurements to gain new insights into the geodynamics associated with the lithosphere, which is right below the crust. It's also been used to produce the first global high-resolution map of the boundary between the Earth's crust and mantle, and has given us a new view of the remnants of lost continents. Cool stuff, right? Hidden deep beneath the ice sheets of Antarctica. All right, and also, even though it wasn't designed to do this, it's helping scientists to better understand glacial dynamics. So, more of relevance, say, to besides the geological stuff and physics stuff, is that it became the first seismometer in orbit when it detected sound waves from the massive earthquake that hit Japan in March 2011. So it could be an earthquake detector, really earthquake detector early. So that's cool. I mean, that could definitely be used. Okay, so we're going to play a little short ESA video of describing, that just basically shows the different Earth gravity variations. Not sure what's happening. That's pretty neat. All right, that's pretty cool. So, as noted, if I'm going to talk, my audience is in the mic, so I have to turn towards that. So the different colors indicate the different amounts of gravity, all right? So, I'm not exactly sure the differentiations between red and blue. Clearly, the oceans are blue, so I would imagine the gravity is less there. So, no, the gravity would be greater there since you're closer to the center. Yes, red would mean that it's less. So, for instance, if you're on Mount Everest, by the way, tallest mountain in the world, you're going to experience less gravity than if you're on the ocean bottom or even at sea level, which is quite interesting. I watched a whole documentary describing this, but that's a talk for another time. All right, moving on here. Hayabusa 2. So I've talked about Hayabusa. This is the second. Hayabusa 2 is the second spacecraft sent by the Japanese Space Agency, JAXA, to an asteroid. So recently, as you know, last time I discussed about the little dark spot that was left when it departed. So it picked up some samples, right? But the samples are going to take forever to get back to Earth. I mean, seriously, these missions take quite a while. But thankfully, scientists don't have to wait for like 5 years or 3 years to get the actual samples. The pictures, light transmits the pictures, right? So radio waves, whatever. The pictures have already arrived on Earth. So scientists are very excited and looking over that. So especially somebody like, say, for instance, Professor C.G. Sugita of the university, I'm probably saying his name wrong, need to learn Japanese, note to self, of the University of Tokyo's Department of Earth and Planetary Science says, I've never felt so excited and nervous at the same time. That wasn't just another science experiment on top of that rocket. That was a culmination of my life's work and the hopes and dreams of my entire team. That's what he said when the rocket successfully launched in December 2014. And then, of course, it didn't get there until, June 27th, 2018, and then it didn't pick up the samples until 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. So, but anyway, so what have they discovered so far, just from pictures? Well, Sugita says that primarily one of them is discovering the amount of water, or the complete lack of it, that Ryugu seems to possess, and it's far drier than was expected. And given that Ryugu is quite young by asteroid space standards, which, by the way, is still much older than anything on Earth for the most part, except for the Earth itself, at around 100 million years old, this suggests that its parent body was also largely devoid of water. Okay, and this is important since it's thought that all of Earth's water, including, you're made of 70% water, right? Came from local asteroids, distant comets, and nebula or dust clouds, all right? So the presence of dry asteroids, that could change our whole perspective on how the early chemical composition of the solar system was, right? So why is this all important besides, oh, cool, another geology thing, right? Well, life, this has implications for finding life. So there's many solar systems out there, and the search for life, we can refine our models to figure out which kinds of solar systems are most conducive to possibly producing water and hence life, right? So, there's definitely something like that. Okay, guys. I don't know what's wrong with my nose today. All right, in any case, that aside, so the other thing that I have to mention, that in 2016, NASA launched OSIRIS-REx, which has arrived at its target asteroid Bennu, Bennu, on December 3rd, 2018. Surprisingly enough, I think the asteroid was discovered to have more water. So, although they're both extremely dark, have spinning top shapes, and are covered in large boulders, Ryogo has far less water. Now, why? No idea. So, researchers are scratching their heads, and I'm sure we're gonna figure it out. So, exciting planetary science done here. So, on to something else that I find of extreme interest, which is about anything to do with aliens or finding life is interesting to me, all right? In case you guys have not realized that by now. Okay, so this one is about how carbon monoxide detectors could warn of extraterrestrial life. So, as you know, carbon monoxide is pretty dangerous here for human beings. If you breathe it in, even a little bit, you're going to die, right? That's why you have them in your houses or buildings, all right? Since it's colorless, odorless, and, However, so astronomers have generally assumed that a buildup of carbon monoxide in a planet's atmosphere could be a sure sign of lifelessness, so no life, right? However, a University of California UC Riverside-led research group is quite thinking the opposite, that celestial carbon monoxide detectors may actually tell us a distant world teeming with simple life forms. So why? Well, on the modern oxygen-rich Earth, carbon monoxide can't accumulate because the gas is quickly destroyed by chemical reactions in the atmosphere, right? Thank goodness, otherwise we'll all be dead. But 3 billion years ago, the Earth, was a very different place. The oceans were teeming with microbial life, but the atmosphere was nearly devoid of oxygen, and the sun was much dimmer, right? So this ancient Earth, it could have maintained carbon monoxide levels about 100 parts per million. That's several orders of magnitude, a couple thousand times greater than the parts per billion that we see in the atmosphere today, right? So what does this mean? This means that if we detect high carbon monoxide abundances in the atmospheres of inhabited but oxygen-poor exoplanets orbiting stars like our own sun, heck, that could be an indication there's microbial life there, and eventually it could develop, an oxygen-based atmosphere or something. So, another thing to note is that the photochemistry around red dwarf stars like Proxima Centauri, the closest star to our sun, so if such a planet around such a star were inhabited and rich in oxygen, then we should expect the abundance of carbon monoxide to be extremely high, anywhere from several hundreds of ppm to several percent. So, that's fairly interesting, right? So with the new telescopes that's going to come up, such as the James Webb Space Telescope, we should be able to find more data of the atmospheres of some of these rocky exoplanets. So that'd be great. If we detect stuff like that, then maybe it indicates there's life there, and hopefully we can send a mission and see for sure. So that'd be awesome. Okay, with that, let's talk about the EHA-ness. EHA-ness? Do people even say that? I can't say it. Whatever. Anyway, the space cowboy stuff, right? Like, what are people doing out there? All right, enough about the science. So, as I was telling you, the Israelis are pretty much the fourth country in the world to actually launch a mission to the moon with a plan of landing on it. Actually, fourth country launched the moon in general, besides the U.S., Russia, or former Soviet Union.
Now for the segment
China,
on Space Cowboys,
and,
a.k.a. Space Entrepreneurs.
Well, now Israel, to land something on the moon. So recently they have selected where to land, and turns out they're going to land in essentially Mare Serenitatis, which is a few hundred miles east of the Apollo 15 landing site and a similar distance northwest of Apollo 17 site. So there were 2 backup sites that were identified. Now, these locations is primarily ancient Mare surfaces, large dark basalt plains. Anyways, it's safe and it's interesting. All right, so hence why the Apollo missions chose here. Okay, so with that, they're gonna land, I think, fairly soon, in a month or 2. They are still orbiting the Earth to pick up speed. It's like spiraling out from the Earth, right? So let's watch a little short YouTube video, and should indicate more of those details. All right, so that's a contour map, right? Cool. All right. So if anything changes, of course, I will let you guys know. So just a note here that scientists are also search for a location on the moon where the crust is magnetic, so as to allow the magnetometers on board the spacecraft to carry out its investigation, which is kind of cool, right? So obviously safe, geologically interesting, and apparently slightly magnetic. So, okay, the next topic really hits like, oh my gosh, you know, I've heard about this for a while now, but I don't know what they're doing, right? And I'm talking about a space plane, all right? Literally a plane that could be like lift off from a airport. Okay, actually, this will have to be a really long runway. It has to be several miles long, the landing, the strip, right? But it could literally lift off its own and come back. So it's like the space shuttle, except the space shuttle required giant rockets to push it up. This has its own rockets, all right? So this has been in development by the British company Reaction Engines for quite a while now. And it's called Skylon, the plane is. And the engine, the hardest part is building an engine that's able to do both the atmosphere, right, at such a high speed. So basically the performance of this is that during takeoff and ascent, the engine scoops up the atmosphere, so it's like a ramjet, and uses to generate thrust, reaching speeds up to Mach 5.4. After reaching an altitude of about 15.5 miles, which is 25 kilometers, it switches to rocket mode and then accelerates to Mach 25 to achieve orbit and flight in space. All right. So the company is Reaction Engines, and they originally proposed it as part of their Skylon spaceplane concept, and they've been working on this since 1989. So how many years is that? Wait, 1999, 2009, like 30 years now. 30 years now. 30 years now. Crazy, right? And they've been doggedly pursuing it, and thankfully they've garnered attention from European Space Agency and the UK Space Agency as well, right? So, okay, so recently this Sabre, S-A-B-R-E, their engine, took a huge step forward. All right, the basically ESA recently, ESA, European Space Agency, and UKSA, UK, Space Agency, recently reviewed the preliminary design of the engine demonstrator's core, thus bringing the full-scale engine one step further to realization. So, Mark Ford, head of ESA's propulsion engineering division, said this recently. The positive conclusion of our preliminary design review marks a major milestone in Sabre development. It confirms the test version of this revolutionary new class of engine is ready for implementation. And then, of course, the British is so proud, as they should be. Chris Castelli, the director of programs at the UK Space Agency, says, as the home of the jet engine, and yes, the British did invent the jet engine, the UK has a rich aerospace heritage and world-renowned skills and expertise. This is an exciting landmark for reaction engines and the development of a Sabre engine, which could revolutionize both access to space and international travel by powering aircraft to 5 times the speed of sound. So essentially, how long does it take for us to get to, okay, so Houston to, say, Beijing, China. Okay, I'm going to go to Shanghai since I would not go to Beijing. Okay, that would take what, like 20-something hours? Imagine cutting it down to, like, say, 4 hours. Halfway around the world. Anywhere in the world. Cutting it, like, max time, instead of 20-something hours, 4 hours. Maybe even less. Pretty crazy, all right? And, of course, you can take stuff into space. And it's reusable. It's like an airplane, except it's a space plane. So the UK has dumped 60 million pounds into this, and the ESA has dumped some more money. And, of course, Reaction Engines, I'm sure they have some investors. So, in any case, so when are they going to do this? Well, this latest review opens the door to a bunch of testing milestones, which they're going to take in the next 18 months. And then the first full-scale test of the completed engine, which, if successful, would take place sometime after that. So, guys, we still got to wait about 2 years, but hey, this is really exciting. After 30 years of hard work, finally, maybe a real engine here. So we're going to watch a little short video. Obviously, it's not developed, but it looks cool. I mean, come on. It's this is the future. This is what they imagine, what we have in mind. Dramatic music. Okay, I'm not gonna talk. That's so cool. All right, guys, that is so cool. Okay, that's the future, guys. I can't wait to take this. Okay, you know what? If they get this to work in like the next 10 years, I will pay for a ticket to go up into space. So it would seem like it would be much cheaper than a rocket, and it would be because it's reusable, right? Okay. All right. So, I would love to dive into talking about UFOs and stuff, or things of that nature. But before I do, I actually want to talk something about science, right? All right. So there's best habitable zones to search for life. All right. So since the number of exoplanets has reached about 4,000 so far, and there's going to be more that's going to be found once next generation telescopes, such as what I mentioned, James Webb Space Telescope, will be going up. We're still plagued by not knowing what the habitable zone is. Habitable zone is like a region in space, a distance away from the star, where we believe that most likely life will have. So, for instance, Earth is in the habitable zone of our solar system. Venus is not; it's too close, so it got too hot, and Mars is too far, and it's too cold. All right. So, recently, a paper called "Habitable Zone Predictions and How to Test Them." It was pretty much it's available now. It's led by Ramses M. Ramirez, a researcher with the Earth Life Sciences Institute, which is kind of interesting, right? ELSI, and the Space Science Institute, SSI, and who was joined by co-authors and co-signers from 23 universities and institutions. So, they basically looked at a survey, right? They considered previously made progress in all these various kinds of research. So, anyways, this survey can provide guidance to NASA, National Science Foundation, and Department of Energy as they plan their astronomy and astrophysics goals in the future. So, now, one of the major issues with exoplanet habitability is the level of assumptions that are made, right? So breaking it down, most definitions of HZs assume a presence of water, right, on the surface. Since, as far as we know, this is because we only have one data point, Earth, water is the only solvent known to host life. However, even within our solar system, we know that's not true. I mean, come on, look at Titan, which is a moon of Saturn. That planet not that planet, that moon, which could be a planet, is almost like it's really rich in methane. It's like liquid methane, frozen methane. So instead of the water cycle, they have the methane cycle. All right, and methane, as you know, is also organic. So it's entirely possible there's methane-based life there, right? We know on Earth there are, but they're fairly rare. All right. So essentially, you know, that's one example of assumption that we've made that could be really flawed. Another one that we have considered is that we think that, you know, somehow this water cycle can only exist on planets that have land, which effectively rules out water worlds, which are, as I mentioned a number of episodes back, like say could be 50% water by mass. In other words, no land at all, and it goes down all the way to the mantle, say. Like there's like the mantle is pretty much half water. Okay, so that's really hard to imagine, but yeah, so we discounted that. But hey, those could have life as well. So with this amount of water, water worlds could have dense layers of ice at their core mantle boundary, thus preventing that before they thought it could prevent hydrothermal activity. But it could be simulations though have shown these planets could still cycle carbon between the atmosphere and the ocean, thus keeping the climate stable. So, you know, if these types of ocean worlds exist, scientists could detect them through lower planetary density and high pressure atmosphere, which then would indicate, okay, all right, clearly there's an atmosphere. All right, wonderful. So in any case, and then also there's the talk about red dwarfs, the most common type of stars in our observable universe. They're much dimmer than our sun, all right, but they last a lot longer. Okay, so there were debates on whether planets that orbit these stars would be capable of maintaining an atmosphere. So there are lots of observations that rocky, tidally locked planets are fairly common around red dwarf stars. However, you know, there's research that indicate the instability of these red dwarf stars could result in solar flares that could strip of planets or surrounding them or orbiting them of their atmospheres, which would then mean, you know, life would be dead, right? So Ramirez and his colleagues raised the possibility that maybe habitable planets around those red dwarf stars could be very unlikely. Then there's a case of type A stars, which are gigantic on the other side, right? Gigantic, bright stars, all right? Okay, like Sirius A, Altair, and Vega, right? And those were thought to be too hot and bright to be for habitability, but then they may not be. We have to do more research, right? So look forward to James Webb Space Telescope, Wide Field Infrared Space Telescope, as well as ground observatories like Extremely Large Telescope, 30-meter telescope, and Giant Magellan Telescope to provide more data, and then we can, understand this more. With that, we got to take a short break. When we get back, we're talking about some weird stuff. SG2 in Space, episode 25.
Put your money where your community is. Get in the action. Action 1. Independent thinkers working together. Inspiring action in media. Get in the action. Inspire today. Join us by being a sponsor at weareA1.com.
When the 7 trumpets sound, we gon' start the revolution. When we turn up, we shut it down. We are skywalkers. The spheres of my Kabbalah illuminated properly in sight. Shows the man in universe and the creator's gift of life. When the earth collides with every piece of star from afar, there's a higher probability to find out what we are. Trapped in time and space, lost in this dimension. 7 sins committed daily. Never did I fail to mention this the rapture. I capture every piece of star power with this mic.
Get in action. Yo, we back at it again, baby. What?
Get into action.
3.
Get in action.
Tell me what is the deal, tell me what is the deal.
So I challenge you today to start strong.
Get in the action.
Tell me what is the deal. Cause I'm calling for you.
Get in the action.
Can you feel that? See, I'm calling for you. Can you feel that? See, I'm calling for you. Can you feel that?
Man, you still here? Go on and subscribe.
SG2 on Space, episode number 25. This is your host, Shen God. Alright, so the last few minutes, we're talking about astrobiology. No, just kidding. I really just want to talk about aliens. Alright, so I mentioned a little bit back about the Pascagoula alien encounter, right? And give you a little refresher here. Give you a little refresher, and I will tell you that more people have come out talking about what they have encountered on that particular day, all right, what they saw. So, short story, all right, 2 Pascagoula men, the Pascagoula is a tiny town in Mississippi, all right, 2 Pascagoula men claimed they were abducted by aliens. You know what? Forget the claim part. I'm just going to say they were abducted by aliens, all right? So, 2 Pascagoula men were abducted by aliens while fishing on the Pascagoula River. So, this typically happens when you tell people that, because a lot of people are not as open-minded. They say you guys are crazy. All right, Okay. Anyways, so 3 more witnesses have come forward. And all 3 of them have said they saw some kind of flying object with bright blue light. So let me tell you the story from Parker's perspective, Calvin Parker. So it was October 11th, 1973. This is quoting him. We have gotten off work that day, and a friend of mine, he and I went fishing. The old abandoned shipyard. They had a little pier out front, and we were on that pier. I'm gonna guess it was about 6 o'clock in the evening. It had just started getting dark, but it was kind of a bright moon. A big light came out of the clouds. It was a blinding light. It was hard to tell with the light so bright, but it looked like it was shaped like a football. I would say, just estimating, it was about 80 foot. It made very little sound. It was just a hissing noise. Okay, so that's already kind of weird. And then Parker said 3 legless creatures. Oh yeah, wait until you hear this description. 3 legless creatures floated from the craft. One had no neck, with gray wrinkled skin. Okay, that does not look human. Alright, another had a neck and appeared more feminine. Parker described their hands as being shaped like mittens or crab claws. I'm sure we all seen humans looking like that, right? Okay. When one of the creatures put one of its claws around his arm, yes, I'm gonna put a claw around somebody's arm later. Okay, just kidding. When one of the creatures I'm sure he was terrified. One of the creatures put one of his claws around his arm. Parker said, he said he was terrified, as anybody would. But then another feeling came over. He got drugged, all right? So basically he got injected with something to calm him down. And then he kind of basically got brainwashed. And, because alien medicine, right? Or whatever they do. So then he basically followed willingly alone. He and his associate, Charles Hickson, all right? So Parker said that the creatures floated him and Hickson into the craft and performed physical examinations on the 2. Then they were taken back to the bank of the river. So it sounds like a classic alien abduction story, right? Which a lot of people are skeptical of. So since you can see UFOs, but being abducted by aliens? Heck no, right? That's what some people say. But no, my thought is, yes, they were totally abducted. You know why? Why would they make up these stories to sound crazy, right? That's just a stupid thing to do. And why would they? And also, there's more witnesses now, so they're not the only crazy ones. Okay, so add on to the crazy ones if you believe they're not. Okay. So Maria and Jerry were sitting in their 1969 Pontiac GTO in the parking lot of Graham's Seafood on the opposite side of that river. Jerry worked for the business and was waiting on a boat captain to take him offshore that day. The captain was late, and the Blairs waited for hours. Just after dark, Maria saw something strange. So Maria says, I was looking in the sky, and I noticed a blue light in the sky over where they were fishing. It started moving, and it seemed like it was following along the Pascagoula River. I just seen the lights on it. It was just going back and forth. Sometimes it would just sit there. It went on for 20 to 25 minutes. And then Jerry said, I thought it was a helicopter initially and just blew it off. It landed about 150 to 200 yards from us. I was just north of the bridge and it was just south of the bridge. I was there, but stupid me didn't pay much attention to it. I was just going offshore and thinking about other things. So Maria said the flight pattern and the ability to hover were not indicative of a plane, okay? And Jerry was just not paying attention because somehow the dude was not paying attention. All right. But at least somebody, Maria's like, this is really weird, okay? Then woman, even stranger, saw in the water. Okay, so after they lost the craft, okay, continue on, all right? The two went to put Jerry's clothing and other items on the boat. While walking down the lighted pier, something else caught their attention. So Maria says, we heard this loud thumping splash in the river. I looked over the side of the pier, and that's when I thought I saw a person in the river. I was looking right down on it. It looked like a person, but there was something different about it. It only came to the surface of the water. As soon as I saw it, it just went back down in the water. So it's either a mermaid or an alien. That's my thought. Okay, one of the two. Given the fact there's a UFO around there and two people got abducted, more likely an alien. All right, or maybe an alien's pet. Like aliens decide to keep pet mermaids, and they're like, okay, whatever. We're abducting humans and doing little experiments on them. Just tag them and observe them, whatever. So might as well let our mermaid pets have some fun. Let's let them splash in the water for a bit, and then we'll pick them back up after our examination's done. That's entirely possible, guys. It's not outside of the realm of possibility, right? Okay, anyways. So, whatever Maria has seen, which she thought was a person in some sort of diving gear, did not resurface. Jerry, for some reason, thought it was a dolphin because he's a hardcore skeptic, apparently. And Maria said she was positive it was not a dolphin. All right. So, in the following days, she heard reports of Parker and Hickson's experience, and the description of the aliens actually matched what she had seen in the water. So Maria says, I thought it was a person, but now I think it was an alien. What Parker described was exactly it. Okay, so maybe it was an alien, not a mermaid. All right. Forget the mermaid story. I don't know why I threw that in there. Okay. And then another story. One of those classic, oh my gosh, your car stops working when a UFO flies by? Well, guess what? It happened. All right, so this lady, Judy Brannon, was sitting in a car a few miles away at a traffic signal with her roommate and their dates. So she says, we're on a double date that night. We're at a red light at Chillicothe and Highway 90, and we're basically sitting on the railroad track. I saw some lights, and I wasn't sure what I was looking at because it was so far away. Okay, she thought it was an airplane first, then came closer and flew over the car she was in, and the four realized it wasn't. It didn't make noise. It had bright, bright lights. It got closer and it was hovering. It was a kind of a saucer shape or disc shape with a rounded top. The radio started sounding like it was running through all the stations, and the car went dead. We were freaking out. So Brennan said after I passed over the car, the craft shot straight up at a rate of speed she had never seen, disappeared. It left her shaken. And she says, I didn't sleep that night thinking about it. So why the heck did nobody say anything? Well, over the years, Brandon told a few people, but not many, because she was scared of people's reactions. Now she's 74 years old, and being a 74-year-old, you don't really care what people think about you. So that's basically what she said, actually. So, anyways, so she says this and then Maria has said this. Okay, when you talk about it back then, people thought you're crazy. Back then, when I saw what Calvin and Charles went through, I kind of backed down talking about it. Anyways, so Parker talked with these folks, and he's very happy that they all seem very credible and that they back him up in what they see. Parker feels like there's more witnesses out there. So, and he says, I definitely do believe there's been 2 or 3 people that contacted me privately that didn't want their names used. I believe there are more people that haven't come forward. Back in the 70s, you just didn't talk about it. Well, guess what, Parker? Even now, you don't really talk about it because there's a lot of people that still think you're crazy. Why? God knows, because they're closed-minded. That's my perspective, all right? So, come on. Governments have spent massive amounts of money on it. And speaking of which, Project Blue Book recently came out. I think that TV series, right? Which talked about the American fairly open program, I would say, back in the 60s, which basically interview people about UFO accounts, investigated phenomena. So, you guys should watch it. I guess it's kind of like a documentary, except they made it like a TV series, all right? So just a note, there's various governments around the world that have investigated or are the countries of Brazil, for instance, Canada, Denmark, Ecuador, France, New Zealand, Russia, and also Soviet Union, Sweden, and the UK, and of course the US have been declassifying some of the UFO files since 2008. All right. Anyways, the French, for instance, released the COMETA report, COMETA report, which summarized their findings. They were investigating in the late 1990s. So they conclude that 5% of encounters were reliable and yet inexplicable. The best hypothesis available was that the observed craft were extraterrestrial. So, and guess what? France, funnily enough, also accused America of covering up evidence of UFOs. Heck, I'm not surprised, you know. Iran, and this is really weird, Iran, which has been concerned about spherical UFOs observed near nuclear power facilities that they call CIA drones, which reportedly about 30 feet in diameter and can achieve speeds up to Mach 10 and can leave the atmosphere. So that is on par with the fastest experimental aircraft, but it's fairly hard to imagine a sphere without lift surfaces and any obvious propulsion to do that. So they may be worried about America, but I think they should be more worried about aliens. But frankly, I think these aliens are just making sure they don't do anything crazy. So guys, like, World War III may not happen after all, because frankly, we may have E.T., you know, saving us. All right, that's my semi-optimistic perspective, okay? So, with that, I'm going to quote here from retired Army Colonel John Alexander. So he says this: "Disclosure has happened. I've got stacks of generals, including Soviet generals, who've come out and said UFOs are real. My point is, how many times do senior officials need to come forward and say this is real?" Good question, right? Well, the only thing we can do is keep talking about it. And like I said, if you guys, we're wrapping up here, but I got to end this with saying you guys keep looking up, because you never know what you're going to see. And if you see anything weird, please let me know. All right. Because that's what I do, right? Especially when I'm driving and not paying attention to where I'm going. All right. That's a bad thing to do. But point is, if you're not driving or doing anything, you know, where you actually need to pay attention to what's in front of you, go look up. Who knows? Who knows what you will see? So, okay. With that, you've been listening to SG2 in Space, episode number 25. Be sure to follow me at facebook.com/TheShenShow, TheShenshow, and also Action One Media, facebook.com/Action One Media, their website, www.weara1.com. Also follow my YouTube channel, youtube.com/CAST725, my website at impacthound.com. And of course, the YouTube site for Action One Media, youtube.com/ you can type it in, Action One Media. All right. And of course, Action One Media has a bunch of other shows, but there's going to be one that says very clearly SG2 on Space, like no other. Because after all, we are the only Houstons. We are the only weekly space radio show in this town, reachable anywhere in the world. So, guys, look up, and I shall speak again with you very soon.
Peace, it's Brother Atum Ra, and you tuned in to Action One Network.